What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Bleacher Report. This is a post-game show, man. First game of the regular season. We did this for every preseason game as well, but officially here for a game that counts, a game that matters. But it was for a loss. Lions-Packers 27-13. We're going to recap this game. We're going to talk ourselves through this one, what just happened. There's a lot here. There's a lot here. There's a lot of things that I'll have to look back on just to see individual performances. Like when you see a unit that's struggling, you don't know exactly like who's doing well in that group or who's not doing well. It's things happen so fast. So there's a lot of things for sure that needs to be looked at. I know, of course, John Morton is going to be questioned a lot after this game. Again, a lot of things that'll have to be looked at. We've had games like this in the past. As I said when I was watching it live, it reminded me, and I'll use this as a good example here. It reminded me of the Lions Packers Thanksgiving a few years ago. Now that game actually ended up looking better on the scoreboard, kind of like this one, 29-22. We scored very late in that game, but that game it was 6-23 at half. And I remember it well because we had a turnover similar to this one. That time we were on our own side of the field. This time we were in the red zone, so we could have put points up. We turned it over. I think Goff had like some weird scramble where he fumbled, and then the interior got cooked. I mean, pass protection was a disaster. We fell into a hole. We tried to dig ourselves out of it, and in that game, we started the second half with a great drive, went down, scored a touchdown. And I think that's the game where we also tried like a fake punt on our own side of the field at that point, and it didn't work. But we kind of pulled ourselves closer, and then ultimately it unraveled, and we just weren't able to get there. And this game had that kind of similar vibe. Came out in the second half, really good moving drive, but settled for a field goal instead of the touchdown. And then you get back on defense and you're thinking, okay, now is our opportunity. And you have an interception that goes back for 6, called back because of a penalty, and you kind of just leave that back out there. And you weren't able to really ever dig out of that hole, right? So that's what this one felt like. And once you were playing that game against this pass rush front, you're in trouble. Like this is going to be one of the best pass rushing teams in football now with Micah in the mix because he's just one of the best. It didn't really matter who was next to Micah. Even at Dallas, it was like Micah's that good. So this is not the game that you can play against that team. We couldn't play that game against Dallas. We never could when Micah was healthy. There's a way that you have to play a team like that. And we got ourselves in really the worst situation to be able to play the right game, if that makes sense. So we're going to walk through this one a little bit, but that's the game it reminds me of. Again, we've seen tough games at the beginning. So I personally, right now, I'm not that concerned with a lot of things. I mean, like, obviously there's things that need to look much better, but in terms of like being overly like long-term concerned, I'm not really that long-term concern about things. I expected the Lions offense was going to be sluggish. Some of that was I thought Green Bay was going to be good on defense. I always credit Green Bay secondary because they're very sound. We saw it again. I think Evan Williams had the pick. He's a fantastic safety. They have great safety unit. Their linebackers are very tough. And it felt like the Lions had a very similar strategy to the very last time they played Green Bay. They won that game 34-31. This strategy felt very similar. Like there's a way, and now both teams were banged up, but it's a very similar strategy. We got to get the ball out fast. It's kind of what the Lions did in the past game. A lot of spread out, get the ball out. They play a lot of zone coverage, so you're going to have those windows, and it's just attacking spacing. That's a very similar strategy. You also have to be able to run the football a little bit. That never really came together, right? It didn't come together nearly enough for the Lions in this game. I would say that was on the surface the biggest issue or the biggest concern for me was that we just didn't have a consistent run game. Like when we played them last time, we did a lot of the heavy personnel. We utilized tight ends. We went at McDuffie, all that kind of stuff. But this is one of those games where we knew both sides there was differences. You took Kenny Clark out of the game, who to me was never really a big time run defender anyway. But TJ Slayton specifically was no longer there. So you're relying on some young guys, Colby Wooden. You're relying on Carl Brooks. And the Lions' interior all line was all different. Tate Ratledge, Mahogany, who played about 100 snaps last year in pass pro, and then Graham Glasgow at center. So that was all different. And it was just like, where is your consistent movement going to come from for the Lions on the offensive line? And they didn't get it, not nearly enough. So this was a handful. And look, Green Bay was athletic up front. They're always athletic up front. I don't know that, but starting downhill. You saw the second half. Lions came in with the strategy of a lot of play action under center. We're going to slow down this rush. We're going to throw on rundowns, which coming in, if you watch my keys or my players to watch, that's exactly what I said would be the key first, second down. It always is the key, but specifically from the sense of first and second down is when you're going to get much more simplified coverage. It's going to be very hard to convert on third down, which I think we saw a little bit in this game. But in those spots specifically, that's where you can also minimize that pass rush. So the game plan coming out of half, I thought was very smart by John Morton, going to that play action heavy over and over and over. We've done things like that before in the past, and it got us a spark. It got us going. It's just we didn't capitalize in the red zone. And ultimately, what do we say about red zone? What do they always say about the red zone? It's hard to score in the red zone if you can't run the football. You have to run the ball in the red zone. Like, it's just straightforward like that. and the Lions didn't run the ball well enough in the red zone. You have to be able to run the ball forward in the red zone. You have to be able to get knocked back. And if you remember with Ben Johnson, that was an issue too. It was at one point where the Lions couldn't run the red zone, and eventually they had to get to the point where they could run the red zone. That became an elite red zone offense. That's what was missing, is you didn't have that in the red zone seemingly in this game. And I'll talk about kind of what my players were to watch, to just talk about maybe how some of them performed. I know for me, I thought this was going to be a Sam Laporta game, and he was definitely the most productive receiver that we had in this game. Some of it was kind of garbage time, you could say, but he was the most productive. Graham Glasgow was the other key for me for the Lions offensive line. Graham seemingly was relatively shaky in this game. I would say Mahogany seemed to really struggle in pass protection. Again, that's not a good spot for these young guys to be put in. But when you play that game against this team with that kind of rush that's going to be in their ears back, that is so sound in the back end, it's hard to play that game and think you're going to work your way back. Even if we had the O-line we had last year, it would have been a struggle for us to get back in the game. And I say that because we've seen it. We've seen it with Graham, with Frank. We 2023 we didn't have Zeitler, but it's difficult to pull yourself out of a hole against a team like that knows they can rush. So this is one of those aspects where we got ourselves in that spot at the game that we couldn't play, that we ended up having to play with them. So I want to talk through this a little bit. Go through the play-by-play, what happened, how did this shake out, and obviously, good, bad, defense. Defense came out not great, not great at all. I think the game plan, obviously, the game plan wasn't great watching it live. I mean, there's things we got to see back. Obviously, the game plan was not great watching it live, and they settled in the second half. They did much better in the second half, but that first half, they were very aggressive. They were trying to get after Jordan Love in that first half, and it backfired big time because every time they seemingly tried to go after them, they knew where the window was, right? They knew where openings were in zone specifically, and it really backfired on us. We saw the red zone touchdown. They ran the wheel route, had a pick play. Lions didn't play with any staggered depth between their corners. They were playing press man across the board. That's easy to pick. That's going to be an easy touchdown. And because of, again, the style of game that you had to play, I thought this would be low scoring, which it was for a while. And I also thought that this was going to be a run fest by both teams. I believed it started with stopping Josh Jacobs. Kelvin Shepard apparently told his team, and he thought the exact same way, like, hey, how do you beat this team? You have to stop the run first. And the Lions came out and they did that. They actually did a great job at that. So it's a positive. They did a great job. But that being said, what they didn't do great was they were very poor on early third down situationally. And it's weird because that was what I thought a key would be for our offense, which I think that it was, but it was actually more of a key for the flip side, is Green Bay had better plans there. And this is one of those elements where watching it live, I don't want to make claims here, but watching it live, when you have a guy like Kelvin Shepard, first-time defensive coordinator in third down spots, that's an area where you got to get crafty. And these were 30 longs that they were converting. So I'm not saying it's all him. Obviously, you got to get some pressure as well. But that's an element where it's a new defensive coordinator. We got diced up on third and long. And that's a spot that you can't, because typically you play those odds. You're like, man, if it's third and long over and over, we're going to get off the field. And we didn't get off the field in those spots. So we played the game as bad as we could for the game that we needed to play. And it started off, again, just like that. I mean, it was a third down. What was it? Let me get this right. It was a third down and long. I think it was a third down and like 10. Yeah, it was third and 10. They ended up picking up a first down on third and 10 on that very first drive. They hit that big seam pass that we saw as well. They hit a 3rd and 6 conversion as well on that first drive. They had a 3rd and 9 touchdown pass up the seam right in front of Brian Branch, which is a really well ran route. But that's one of those areas, and that's something that new D coordinator, same staff on the opposite side, they're familiar. We're familiar with each other. They had a better plan. They executed much better in those spots. Our pass rush seemingly did not come through in those spots. And also, again, I think the aggressive nature, which in theory I think was fine against Green Bay, it should have been pulled back a lot quicker. And it seemed like it was in the second half, but in the first half, it should have been dialed back much faster than it was. And coming in that kind of aggressive, the way that they did was not great because they had protection for it. And it just left windows in zone voids that we had. So again, we started that game off just allowing too many third downs. Our first drive stalled out because, again, we didn't get the run game going nearly fast enough. I mean, we had sparks in there, but it wasn't nearly fast enough that we got the run game going. So we punt. But again, if you look at it, it's the fact that you fell into this hole. It's one thing for them to score 17 through the time that they did. That's fine. But it's that they scored it immediately. It was touchdown, field goal, touchdown. Well, now you've done that, and the Lions are not capitalizing in the red zone. That changes things very quickly because the Lions, again, the second half, they start out much better on defense. So offense kind of stalled. Defense ended up getting a stop. But again, this was about 3rd and 7, first down. On a 3rd and 7, it was Jaden Reed who beat Amik Robertson. He picks up a first down. So it's another third down. And then you finally get off the field. And this might have been your first third down you got off the field. 3rd down and 3, incomplete pass. Really good coverage by Terrion. That'll be a side note to keep an eye on. Terrion's health Like, that'll be something to absolutely keep an eye on. I know he had the groin injury. We don't want to lose him because, to be frank, like, if he's healthy, if he's out there, we might have that interception hold, and obviously that's going to shake the game. Like, always one thing, and I say this all the time, but it's not my saying. It's always said. It's never as bad as it looks, but it's also never as good as you remember. It's kind of like one of those type of things. That's how this game felt as well to me. Like, this game was really tight in the sense that it would have become very tight in a couple of plays, and we didn't make those plays. They made those plays. Red zone was a big one offensively for us. Third down and longs, you can't allow so many conversions of spot. Finally, we get off the field. Offense has a good drive. Offense has a really good drive. They get down the field, but again, they had to settle ultimately for a field goal, and it was St. Brown who made the fantastic grab, but the run game was not as consistent as we needed. 4 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, 3 yard, 2 yard. A lot of it was the pass game. It was just leaning on Goff to get us down the field. That's not good enough running the football. A 0-yard run on 2nd and 5. Now, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I know this. Penei Sewell was not good enough in the first half. From watching live, he was just not good enough in the first half. And that's something I thought coming into the game. Like, what am I? And I thought I would get pushback for it when I said Penei Sewell's got to be better. Like, because last time he played Green Bay, I didn't think he was good enough. Penei Sewell's got we set a very high standard for Penei Sewell, rightfully so. He's earned that, but he didn't play up to that standard at all. Not anywhere near it in the first half. I knew he was going to be challenged, but that was not good enough, right? It was way too much of Penei Sewell's getting cooked by Micah. But the second half, he seemingly figured it out. He battled back, and great on him. It was great on him. But again, the problem is you were then at a point where now you're in a multi-score hole. Now you're in a spot where your run game and that play action kind of fell apart because let's say you score a touchdown. Let's say that drive, you come on a half, you're moving the ball well, you score a touchdown there. Now it's 17-10. It's a completely different feel. Even if you don't get that interception, you're getting the ball back down one score. It's a completely different game. But you kind of lost the element of being able to run the ball eventually, and plus you never really had it, but to kind of continue to play that way seemingly. And so you kind of lost some of what, again, the Lions have typically done against Green Bay in the past. Get the ball, quick play action, that kind of thing, what brought them back to life. So stalling out that first time in the red zone was a problem. And I think Goff rushed it a little bit on that third down where he kind of just fired it out there to Laporta. Again, that was good pass protection. Fired it out to Laporta, just didn't put it on him. And then they scored immediately the very next drive. And I think this was the key drive of the game. There's a lot of places you can point to, series, whatever it is. To me, this feels like the key because coming into the game, my expectation was a lot of running both sides. Game's going to fly by, which it kind of did. Game did fly by. I mean, there's still games going on right now. So you have that. I expected it to fly by. I thought it would kind of go that way. I thought this would be a defense battle. I thought it'd be low scoring. But the key for me was there was going to be big. I thought they were going to come after us. I thought they were going to go first play. I thought they were going to take a shot. And they didn't do that. But the third drive, they did. And they did it off of our good drive. It was 10-3. We found some momentum. And immediately they took a shot. And this was the play that we couldn't give up. It was like, hey, it's one thing. Like, as long as this is incomplete, we're going to be fine as long as we're playing the run. And we played the run. We played the run really well in that first half. But 48-yard strike to Romeo Doubs ends up getting behind. I think it was Terran Arnold. He kind of got behind him, but the Lions brought it. And again, this is where the blitzing got completely backfired. And on paper, it made sense to blitz on early downs, right? Because, like, well, if we're going to limit the shot plays and stop the run, you can do that. But in the back end, you better be on point because if you give up these big shot plays, you're in trouble. And they did. And then again, they had kind of the rub route, which again, to me, I believe from watching it live, that little pick play touchdown was their offense coordinator saying, oh, Lions are doing this in the red zone. Like, you could see it. The Lions were playing man in the red zone very heavily. And you can see that. And if you don't have enough wrinkles as a defense coordinator and you're not changing the tempo that often until halftime, you're going to get beat by a good offensive mind. And he got him in a good spot. He scored the touchdown. And I think that was a massive game changer. So that felt like drive of the game just because of what that led to. But to be honest with you, the next drive could have also made the same argument because the Lions had something rolling here. Like, another great drive. And it lands in an interception. And it was Penei Sewell who was beat like that. So Goff got it out in a hurry, and it was picked off. Kind of picked off. It was picked off. That changed it too, because even if you walk away with a field goal there, yeah, it's 17-6. But let's just say you get your field goal second half. Now it's 17-9. It's still a one-score game. It's still a one-score game without the interception. So, again, it's how typically football games go. Unless you have two teams that are way overmatched, games are there's a couple of things that I know are true. Number one, styles make fights. We've all heard that. There's styles that you have to play against certain teams. You can't play everybody the same. Not everybody you play is going to take the same approach. There's certain styles you have to play to beat certain teams. And this was the complete wrong style the Lions needed to play to beat Green Bay. Young interior offensive line, guy in Mahogany, who was good last year, but it's not brought up enough. This guy didn't have many pass pro snaps. He didn't really have any pass pro true reps this past season. That was new to him this year. So you're putting him in that mode where we're down 2 scores. We have to throw it. He's drop back passing all the time. This guy's going to start getting torched. And he did. And Green Bay runs a lot of stunts. He starts getting torched. So you got Graham at center, which, okay. Tate rookie on the opposite side. Penei Sewell is really struggling with Micah, which in general, even if he's playing his best, he's still going to have some issues there because he's that good. But he's settled in, credit to him. But that was not the style to play. You couldn't play that style and feel good about, we're going to get this one done. Even if Frank was available, as I touched on earlier, even if Frank played in this game, I don't know that we would have had enough to get it done because there's a certain style you have to play against certain teams. And this is another one of those examples where it always is. It's a handful of plays that you're like, that changes it. I felt the same way in the playoffs last year. Right. The talk was about, well, you lost all these guys defensively, right? You lost all these guys health wise, and that mattered. But the Lions had a style to play that game because of that fact, because they knew their defense was banged up. The style they had to play was we have to get up 2 scores, and they didn't get up 2 scores because they fumbled. And it's like, well, if you don't fumble there, you go up 2 scores at least with a field goal. St. Brown's wide open. You might go up 2 touchdowns. Completely different game. You can play. They have to play, but you don't. You turn it over, they score, and I believe it was a tie game. Immediately, the game's different. Immediately, you're not playing your game to win that game. Now, all of a sudden, it's balanced, and we're playing the wrong style. This is the wrong style for us to play. Well, that drive was good, and the run game finally kind of came to life for us for the first time in the game, it felt like. 3-yard run, 6-yard run, 2-yard run, 0-yard run. A lot of it was passing, 3-yard run. It was okay. It was okay. It wasn't enough there, but it was okay. But it was really the pass game. And again, the pass game wasn't different. Like, schematically, things are different. I guarantee that. I haven't seen the all-22, but I guarantee that. But still, with that being said, the overall theme of how the Lions win at Green Bay was not unique. This wasn't like John Morton was like, I'm going to get the ball out fast. Watch this. Like, no, that was literally what we did last time we played Green Bay too. It was 6-yard pass, 7-yard pass, 9-yard pass, 4-yard pass, 4-yard pass, 11-yard pass. And the shot plays that you try to create, we saw a couple of them. They showed replays. You got to protect for it to happen. We had the one shot. Think about it. The one shot play we had to Laporta, the protection didn't seem to be great. Goff kind of stepped into it and got it out there, but it opened up. Man, you got to pass protect. When did that shot play happen? Let's think about it. When it was under center, it was play action. It was coming out of the half when you were able to play that game. So if anything, we could say in hindsight, the Lions should have came out and played that game from jump. Right? They should have abandoned the run quicker. It should have been, hey, look, we're going play action heavy. No more of this. We're trying to actually run the ball. It's not working. We're going play action heavy from jump. That could have been adjustment second drive. And I don't want to be too upset with that, though, because they still moved the ball. I mean, after the first drive, their next 2 drives, they moved the ball. So let me not even dwell on that. They moved the ball. It just so happened that it ended in an interception at the 16-yard line on a 3rd down and 7 off of a 3-yard run and incomplete pass. It ended there because Micah got beat. Micah got cooked. Let me get my camera back on. Bear with me. Micah got cooked. Micah cooked Penei Sewell. All of a sudden, he's free as a rusher, and you end up getting that. And you end up getting him right in his face. So Goff just fires. It gets the ball in a hurry, and it turns into that's one of those examples, right? You get that interception in that spot. You had an opportunity, of course. Just get points. Just points there, any kind of points, field goal, touchdown. Field goal would have been fine. You just had to walk away with points. We didn't walk away with points because of that interception. It was tight, but that's one of those that are going to flip the game because, again, you're starting to get away from the game that you had to play. Defense did their thing. Maybe we should have been more aggressive. Maybe Dan should have called a timeout. We kind of had a goof. Hey, another thing, let's just side note. We're talking offense, defense. Special teams was not good enough today. Special teams just not good enough today. Outside of 2 flags on their end, which we can give us some credit for, it was not good enough. That's something the Lions have to be better at. Because the Lions value special teams. They value their investments there. They were not good enough. And whether that's, hey, I know we didn't have Vaki, so you got Sailors back there. Get somebody else. Put Lovett back there. We got to be better on specials. It wasn't good enough. Flags on specials. Things like that are dumb. We can't have those false start. Like, what are we doing? J-Mo had an offside penalty. Those are dumb things. But anyways, special wasn't good enough. But again, we come out in the second half. We're down 14. So this means that 3 straight drives, we moved it well into Green Bay territory. And we have essentially nothing to show for it. You have a field goal, and on that first drive, you would have had Tesla on the deep end. He didn't really separate, so the ball didn't go there, so Goff had to throw it away. Good play by them. Tesla didn't separate. It is what it is. Maybe we should have ran that fade to him that we ran at the end. The second drive ends in a tough interception. This third drive, think about how they got down the field. Look at this. 5-yard pass. So, again, they were going quick pass, Gibbs. And then they went to the big shot play, and that's when he hit Laporta. Play action. So we were able to settle in through that. 1-yard pass, quick pass, 4-yard run, 16-yard pass. He ends up hitting Laporta on kind of that deep sit-down route. And then we go incomplete, a negative 6-yard run, which is crazy. That's diabolical. A negative 6-yard run on second and goal from the 10. I just touched on this. Ben Johnson told us the same thing because it wasn't like when Ben was here. It was always we were the best red zone offense. We had a great year. We had a down stretch. I remember Ben was so focused on that, like, well, you have to get better in red zone. And then remember Ben told us that red zone analytics say that there's not a lot of consistency, but he felt the reality of red zone was you have to be able to run the football. We have to be able to run the football in the red zone. Negative 6 yards from the 10-yard line, that's not good. That's a problem. Like, regardless of how they're going to fix that style, schematically, whatever that is, it's exactly like the Tampa Bay game, right? It's exactly like the Tampa Bay game last year. I thought they'd be sluggish. Tampa Bay was different in the sense that, well, I don't want to say it's much different. I actually can pull it up right now, but it was, hey, we ran a lot of screens there in the red zone. We didn't score in the red zone. So, and from that perspective, it absolutely was like that. We ran better as a whole, but it was like that from that sense. But negative 6 yards, negative 7 yards, 6 yards, then is a problem. And then you have to check it down. You're not scoring a touchdown from 16 yards out in a red zone in a goal, third down and goals play. So now we have to settle for a field goal. And again, the problem is our defense settled in by this point. They came up with a much better strategy. They forced a 3 and out from jump. I mean, there was a little bit of success on the ground, but Derek Barnes did his thing, got him off the field. So we still did our thing. But think about this: the ineffectiveness running the football was what killed us. I mean, it was, right. We got it going a little bit with Monty there, but it just wasn't consistent enough. I mean, that drive after that drive, we get the ball back, a 1-yard run by Montgomery on 2nd and 7, that followed by a sack on the very next play, and now we're punting. And again, now at this point, because we've walked away with 2 field goals, left 2 scores on the board, essentially, right, with the interception. Now at this point, because I mean, really, you had multiple good drives there. Now you're still in this 2-score hole. And again, you're not playing your game. Defense ended up getting us off the field again. It was a longer drive, but they still got us off the field. Offense gets back out there. And this was kind of I would say that by this point in the game, this was kind of the last strike. Like at this point, now we have to do something. But the problem is, one thing that was really poor for us was field position. The field position battle was a disaster. It was a disaster for a majority of the game. Outside of the 2 flags, it felt like we were constantly living in our own end zone. That's a problem. And again, that's why I bring it up to the Thanksgiving game against Green Bay a couple years ago, because it was the same deal. We were living in our own end zone. We're starting this drive at our own 8-yard line. And I think it was off of a penalty. I believe it was off a penalty. Let me double check. No, it was a fair catch at the 8. Okay, so we're starting from our own 8-yard line, and we couldn't get out of our own end zone. We get sacked on the very first play. Rashawn Gary, I think he went through Taylor Decker. Maybe it was Penei Sewell. Then we tried to run out of it, and it just looked horrendous trying to run the football out of it. I mean, the first one was just blown up. And again, it's kind of what you did. I mean, when you're at your own 1-yard line for a defense, there's not a lot you're worried about really over top. I mean, they're just trying to get out of the end zone. So we try to get out of the end zone. But that 3rd and goal, I mean, the third down from our own 1-yard line, where we decide to run the football, which I don't hate, because they're like, let's just get out of the end zone and stay alive here, because the game will end right here if we do something crazy. That said, miscommunication up front. I think it was Graham Glass, either Graham or Tate. He steps right, O-line zoning left, wide open linebacker steps down, makes the play. That's the kind of thing that kills you. That kills you. Not a consistent run game, not being on the same page. And that kind of did us in, because now it's 12 minutes. The field position battle is terrible because we get a false start. Now we're punting from our own end zone. They're starting at our 36. They've already got a field goal on the board. They don't have to move the ball at all. They got a field goal on the board. And they had some success. They moved the ball a little bit here. They ended up picking up a 4th down with the QB sneak, and then they ultimately kind of punched it in there. And obviously that was essentially the end of the game, because again, once you got to that point, realistically, you were playing a game that you knew you weren't going to win. Like, once you're down at that point, after that drive where you got stuffed in your own end zone, that was kind of it. You weren't coming out of that. You weren't coming back from 3 scores in that spot. You know what I mean? You weren't going to live in that world and find consistent success. So again, the Lions just didn't play a style that was going to lead to success in this game. And initial reactions for me were definitely, hey, Mahogany, this was a wake-up call. And in the sense of, look, I get it. He was tested. This is not the way you wanted to play for him. But the challenge for me with these O-linemen wouldn't be as much of, hey, get better in pass pro, because obviously you need to. The challenge would be, guys, we got to move people. We got to move people. And I'm not saying that they didn't. Maybe they were just sending bodies upfield. I don't know. Maybe the scheme was wrong to run the ball. I thought it should have been much more straight downhill, dual runs, heavy, run at those D tackles, stop stretching it out, stop going outside zone. I thought it should have been much more of that. Maybe it wasn't enough of that, but that's how they help themselves. We have to run the ball better to help themselves. And look, Gibbs didn't seem like you get any kind of traction. Montgomery had some success actually running the football, which maybe we should have went to more David Montgomery because he was running the ball well. They were getting downhill with him. With Gibbs, they never felt like that. Gibbs never felt like he had any traction in this game. Didn't feel like he could make any kind of cut. I mean, that's a side note, but it just felt like dude's cleats were messed up, bro. Dude never felt like he could get upfield. Never felt like dude was gonna get upfield. It was bad. But that's the challenge to them. It'll be, hey, we got to move people. If this is not the game, that we want to play or that we can play, we have to create some more consistent movement on the ground. Because obviously, as we see, is if we can at very least extend drives, and you have to extend drives past the 3rd and 8, right? You can't be in that spot. Then we can get to our play action. We can find success off of that. The pass protection gets a lot easier when we start going play fakes. And all of a sudden, we start to settle a lot of this down. So Green Bay was a good team this week. And the Lions had an opportunity in this game. They definitely had an opportunity in this game. But the reality is that they didn't get any of the swing plays to go their way, which is typically how it goes when you play a good team. There's a few swing plays that you have to make. There's a few swing plays that have to go in your direction if you're going to get the job done. Lions go in their direction this week. So there's that element of it for sure, that they just didn't have that happen enough. But ultimately, yeah. I mean, I want to go to the stats here for a second. Let me take a look at the box score here. So Lions ran the ball 22 carries for 46 yards. You're probably losing that game. You're probably losing that game. 22 for 46. On the flip side, they did well against the run for the most part. I mean, Josh Jacobs, 3.5 yards per carry. Like, we can live with that coming in. That's good. I see that number. I'm thinking, hey, we're in a good spot defensively. And they were. They did their thing defensively, stopping the run. But as much as that was the focus and that's where it was going to start, just too many plays in the pass. And I don't want to, again, say that this is exactly whose fault it was. It could have been more of the front four. I felt the ball was out too fast, and I think that there is a balance of that. It's like, hey, you can blitz, but if you blitz and you don't get there, if you don't have an unblocked player in a blitz and the first read gets off, your blitz is cooked. Typically, even if you blitz, if the first read is open, you're done. You have to still, unless you literally have too many guys where they can't block, which you're probably going to have somebody open then, unless you have that look or there's a breakdown up front, that first read can't be open. And it just felt like the first reads were like it was back foot, balls out. It's like, yeah, dude, you're going to get torched on that. So for me, it felt like watching it live. Hey, Kelvin, this is just not the move. Like it was like, hey, dude, I get it. We're aggressive. We're going after him, but it was not the move. And I give him credit because I don't know that they necessarily pulled back on that, but I can tell you the defense got a lot better after that. So I can give him credit. There seemingly was some real adjustments there. They settled themselves in. I appreciate that. And we'll see how it goes, right? It's a lot for a new defensive coordinator. And, he got taken to school a little bit on third down, on early down, early in this game. This is what it is, right? Sometimes as players, that happens. But it was 4 for 10 on the day, and I think they converted their first 4. So were they 0 for 6 after that? Like, I can appreciate that. But again, I thought, to me, it felt much more schematic defensively than it felt personnel-wise. It felt much more about what we were doing schematically. Yes, guys were getting beat, but at the same time, you have to play that balance. Hey, if you're not getting pressure up front, then, okay, are we going to blitz? Well, if we blitz now, it's one-on-ones. So maybe it doesn't make sense to do that if we're not actually getting there. We weren't getting home. And eventually we were able to settle in on that. Maybe the corners just need to settle in a little bit better than they did. But ultimately, it was a rough start from that side of things. The overall mission that they wanted to set out and accomplish as how they thought they would win this game, they did. The problem is that first-time defensive coordinator, I think it just wasn't great situationally, and they converted on too many of those. And Lions on the flip side, it was going to be a struggle to deal with that anyway, and they just left points out there. They were bad on special teams, and it felt like they just kept losing the field position battle over and over and over. So, again, same thing I'll say from the beginning. It's never as bad as you thought it was. It's never as great as it seemed to be. I don't remember what the saying is, but that's truly how this game felt to me. I mean, it got ugly. It definitely got ugly. But overall, like, I've seen games like this to open the year. Again, Tampa Bay felt very similar to this as well. Now, that game we scored a little bit more, but remember that game, we took the lead because we did a similar thing. We came out of half. We found success. Just like this game, we had a good plan, good adjustment. We found a way to settle the rush. Goff was excited. And here's one thing that I do like about that is it doesn't seem like it had to be overly complicated for the offense to get on track. Like, it didn't take them doing anything special for it to be like, here's how we can move the ball. And we didn't really run the ball that well. They didn't have to do anything special. Their next 3 drives, every drive moved the ball down the field. 3 straight drives after the first one. Every drive got good movement. It didn't take anything crazy. It took, hey, we're going to go play fake. We're going to settle down this pass rush a bit, and we're going to move the football. It's just you didn't capitalize on any of them. And again, to me, that was a sign of not being able to run the ball in the red zone. Not being able to run the ball. And it's kind of a cousin of the fact of, hey, on passing downs, we're gonna have our hands full. It's one thing if we're, vet across the line and Kevin Zeitler's still here and Frank Ragnow's still here, and maybe we do a little bit better in those spots, or Penny Sewell's better in the first half than he was. Like, Penny Sewell is struggling, but if Penny Sewell comes out better, if Penny Sewell looks like the Penny Sewell in the second half that he did, if Penny Sewell comes out like the guy in the second half that he was in the first half, maybe it's a little bit different in some of those spots. But he came out struggling big time. This young offensive line got thrown in a spot where they had his it led to this across the board, right? So you just played a game you couldn't play. You played a game today that you couldn't play, and it's tough. It's tough, but it's definitely a welcome to the NFL, I think, for these interior offensive linemen. There's a lot of things they have to get right there. Communication-wise, they got to be more sound. Stunts, they got to be more sound. Literally couldn't have a tougher test from pass protection perspective, but you got to challenge them. We have to be better against the run. And maybe John Moore needs to challenge himself of, okay, schematically, I didn't love that, right? Maybe that's Hank Fraley. He's the run game coordinator. Hey, schematically, we didn't love that. I don't love the way that we approach going after them. That's kind of what it felt like live. I don't love the way that we attacked their athleticism on that front seven. I just don't love what we did there. So, yeah, and maybe if you have Zeitler and Reg- now, look, to me, we're going to be fine. Like, to me, and I said this from even if we had Zeitler and Ragnow, I don't know that we're getting out of that hole because you're still going to have problems up front, right? We've seen it before. You can't play against certain teams like that. Shoot, we saw it last year against Tampa. It's like, it's hard to play games like that. You play those kind of games, you're going to find out. But especially for those young guys, oh boy, that was a disaster waiting to happen. You get them in that spot, it is a nightmare. So challenges, settle those guys in, find more consistency on the ground. And I think next week feels like a good opportunity to do that. Remember, Green Bay had a really good run defense. Last year they did. It's a good week opportunity next week to settle in. Obviously, don't have the same pass rushing threats. I still feel like the core of an identity of who they were offensively didn't feel that different, to be honest with you. It didn't feel that different. We just didn't execute in crucial spots. So, we played a game that we couldn't play today. The game ran out on us time-wise, which was kind of expected because of how both teams were going to play. And I'm not overly concerned. It's just more so the reality is the reality. It's not even a concern. It's just, hey, O-lineman got to get better. Penei Sewell, we said coming into the game, hey, Penei Sewell, you got to be good. You got to be better today. You have to be better in this game. That was the claim coming in. You have to be better in this game. He was not good enough. He was not up to the challenge. He did not meet the challenge from jump. He did not at all. And that's not on him. Some of that's the fact that as an O-line, you just didn't run the ball that well. So you constantly put him in that challenge. Even the best linemen are going to struggle with that. Even the best linemen are going to struggle with that. You can't let teams pin their ears back. But that said, he didn't meet the challenge from jump. And I think that offensively, they seem to have a very good plan for what we were sending at them. And I actually think the blitzing and the aggressive nature clearly worked against us in that game until we kind of pulled back seemingly and kind of settled in. And then it started to kind of shift into a positive for us. And hopefully Calvin Shepard could take that as a learning opportunity, maybe get a quicker adjustment next game. And from the offense side of the thing, like, just weren't good enough up front, man. Just weren't good enough up front. But overall, like, I'm not concerned because I think the truth is what the truth is. We have to be better there. And these young guys got to grow, and they got to grow fast because we need them to. We need them to. It's plain and simple. And it's hard to have great offensive linemen, but we need them to. And you bet on those guys, you bet on the players, you bet on the mahoganies that, hey, this was bad, but this was your toughest challenge by a mile. You didn't face anything like this last year. Tate, you're a rookie. This is a lot. This was a lot. Now we settle in. Okay. Now we settle in. We get this thing right. And if they get better, just better every week, nothing crazy, just get a little better. Just a little bit better communication, right? We didn't have any false starts. We didn't have any holdings. Honestly, kind of would have liked the holding, how bad it was, but we didn't have those. Just get a little bit better, get a little bit more sound, create a little bit more movement. As a coaching staff, find plays that are more consistent. The duo runs, the downhill runs, lean into that. It just felt like we didn't. And I had the same knock against them last time against Green Bay. It felt like we were going stretch run stuff. It's like, no, dude. Like, find what they do well. This is a good week. Watch the film. What did they do well? We haven't seen this offensive line play together once outside of joint practices. You played Miami. They're not testing you up front, right? Houston's good defensively. But ultimately, based on how those goes, you're not getting the same look. You have film. What did they do well? Lean into that and work along the diversity of the run scheme. Because right now, you just may be able to be as diverse as you want it to be. You may not be able to do all of these things. Figure out what they do well, or maybe that's add more to it, but figure out what they do well, lean into that, and slowly bring along everything else. And I trust Hank's going to help us do that, and I trust the players that we drafted. So I believe in what we have. And maybe Miles Frazier at some point comes back and starts. I mean, I'll say that as a side note. I thought Miles Frazier would start this year at guard. I thought it was on the table. He could do it. I still think it's on the table. I don't think it's off the board at all that Miles Frazier could find himself for somebody taking somebody's job. I don't think that's impossible. Whether that's, he jumps, whoever he jumps, Mahogany, whoever. I think it's absolutely, but it's very young, and you have to find what they do well so that they can play fast, they can play smart, and they're not thinking, and they can build some confidence. And then once you figure that out based on the film, which I think is what the film is going to be there for, they'll be able to settle in everything off of that. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate you guys for joining. We will be back in the week to go through some news leading up to our next game against Chicago. And of course, we'll be back for a post-game show then. I appreciate y'all for joining. Have a great weekend. Go Lions, though we're 0-1. And I'm out.